Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
And I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Wednesday, August 6th, 2025. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Greg Mitchell, journalist, author, writer, director. On his most recent, The Atomic Bowl, Football at Ground Zero, and Nuclear Peril Today. Then Adam Bonica, associate professor of political science at Stanford and publisher of the On Data and Democracy substack, on the scam fundraising by a major Democratic affiliated group. Also on the program today, in a massive blow to public health, RFK Jr. cancels $500 million in funding for mRNA vaccines. Today is the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. And Section 2 is on the chopping block as Texas's gerrymander is one of its cleavers. Trump says, meanwhile, that he may enlist the FBI to kidnap those Texas state lawmakers and bring them back to Texas. Speaking of which, the Trump regime meeting in a dinner at J.D. Vance's house to discuss the Epstein problem they have. This, as convicted child trafficker who enabled child rape, Ghislaine Maxwell claims Trump never did anything that she saw that was concerning. Yeah.
What a surprise. Thanks for telling me. You should have said so.
Thank God you have a high bar. Microsoft's cloud platform used to surveil every call and text in Gaza since 2022. Trump regime to target JP Morgan and Bank of America over supposed MAGA discrimination. You'll recall that interview we did with Lauren Windsor about the right going after Bank of America because of their green energy investing. Trump regime reassigns FEMA employees to ICE. And it's day 2 of 3,000 Boeing workers on strike in Missouri. And lastly, Miss USA 2025 files a restraining order against a Florida Republican congressman. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. Emma is off today. We will get to all of those stories and more. Of course, today is not only the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. We're going to have somebody on over the next week or two to talk about not just the Voting Rights Act, but more importantly, relative to the Voting Rights Act, is Section 2. Supreme Court last week, I think it was Friday night, took a case that is directly aimed at Section 2. You'll recall this is the same Supreme Court that has been dismantling the Voting Rights Act bit by bit since 2013. Section 2 is the part of the Voting Rights Act that ensures, in the wake of Jim Crow, that large communities of underrepresented people, black, brown people often, cannot be gerrymandered out of having their will as a majority in certain districts kept from essentially electing people of their preference. So the idea is that, if you gerrymander in a certain way, you could take a state that has a 40% black population and diminish the black vote by taking bits and pieces of that 40%. And usually people are, you have communities, so people are living next to each other, geographically segregated often in these areas. And just taking bits and pieces, shoving them into other districts and preventing any black representation in those districts. And Section 2 is on the chopping block. We will get to that over the next week or two. But it's an important thing to keep in mind because that's what's happening in Texas. The redistricting would strip the ability of Latinos to exercise their political power commensurate with the size of their population. And not just Latinos, but also black people. More on that later. In the meantime, you'll recall yesterday we played a clip of Donald Trump on Squawk Box. He's getting nervous, I think, because of the jobs numbers. And somehow his magic tariffs and his immigration policies are not working the way that he's been told, or he is under the impression they're going to work. Or maybe he doesn't care. But we are starting to see signs of stagflation, job losses, and a lack of productivity. The GDP shrinking. So he was on Squawk Box yesterday, and you'll recall he claimed that his approval rating is at 70%, which would be very astonishing. You'll recall.
Republicans are at 94 and 95%. No, I'm talking about generally. Let me put it this way. There was a gentleman on Harry Emden yesterday on CNN, and he went crazy over how well Trump was doing. Now, you don't put that on because I think CBS is a shade. Actually, CNN's a shade better than NBC. I think NBC is probably the worst of them all. But if you check CNN tomorrow, watch Harry Emden, and you'll see about the numbers. But that's okay. We have to defend ourselves.
So we decided today is tomorrow, and we decided to check in with Harry Emden. And after not being able to find Harry Emden, we ended up settling on Harry Enton.
Listen, was the president correct about the polling, though?
No, I don't think the president was correct. I give him a fair shake. I don't give him a positive spin. Look, he is not at the highest point he's ever been. Take a look at his net approval rating, where it is right now. It's negative. He's underwater, right? You compare that to where he was at the beginning of this term. He was 6 points above water. Now he's 9 points below water. If we are comparing him to other presidents at this point in their presidencies, he is the second lowest on record compared only to himself, who does worse. If we're comparing him to other second terms, he's certainly in the bottom of the list, not nearly all the way at the bottom. Richard Nixon was at a worse position at this point. But when you're comparing yourself to Richard Nixon and you're saying that you're doing better than Richard Nixon in your second term, that's not exactly a good position to be in.
Now, what I find a little bit annoying about this is that the shorter answer is no, he completely lied. He's not anywhere close to 70% approval rating. He's closer to 30% approval rating than he is 70%. He's at something like, 43% approval rating. I wonder if they're a little bit nervous in being that explicit. But the short answer is no, of course. Trump completely lied. And what's fascinating is he lied with a citation that it's not like you have to go It's not like you have to get a JSTOR, registration.
Go to the library.
Exactly. They just turn on your stupid TV. And of course they're talking about it the next day. I just wonder if he doesn't, if they as soon as
They're showing him highlights.
As soon as the poll comes up, they run to cover the top where it says approval and disapproval. And they just think it's the opposite.
Watch Harry Emden.
But no, I said Harry Emden. It's not Harry Enton.
I think honestly at CNN they're probably like 3 days away from changing his name to Harry Emden just so that they don't get in trouble with Trump. All right, in a moment we're going to be talking to Greg Mitchell. He has directed multiple movies on or documentaries, I should say, on the dropping of bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and specifically the way the U.S. government has, what they have done in terms of propagandizing this. And his latest is The Atomic Bowl, and it is now playing on PBS. It is today is the 80th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima. His documentary is about Nagasaki. That 80th anniversary is tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? No.
The 9th.
The
Friday.
9th.
I believe that's Friday.
Oh, today's the 6th. Right. 3 days from today. We'll be talking to him in just a moment. Just a couple words from our sponsors. Delete Me makes it easy and quick and safe to remove your personal data online at a time where obviously there's a lot of surveillance. There's a lot of scams. We've lost a lot of government protections from phishing scams and whatnot. And of course, there's a little bit of political rancor in the air. And so for many people, having their personal information secure and less available, and in some instances totally unavailable online, is important. I have been using Delete Me probably for the last decade, way before they became sponsors of the program. And I do that obviously because of the nature of this job. But also, I get the benefit of, I get a lot less phishing scams. I'm a lot less worried about identity theft. Here's what happens in that regard. Data brokers, as you know, maybe you don't know, sell your information online. They'll sell your phone numbers. They'll sell your addresses. They'll sell your past addresses. They will sell information as to who you might be related to, who might have lived in your home. I mean, all sorts of this information is available for, I don't know, $15 online. And what happens is scam artists, they buy stuff, information on the dark web. Then they match it up with information they can get from data brokers. Then they can pull all sorts of scams on you, steal your identity. There's a lot of different nefarious things they can do. There's that scam now where like they're sending packages to people with a fake Amazon thing and a QR code, and like scan this for a discount, and then it goes in and they broke it into your system. Delete Me takes care of this. What do? They send you monthly reports on what they scrub from these data broker sites because they repopulate. So it's super easy. All you do, you go in, you give them your name, your email address, any information you want deleted, and they take care of it. You can take control of your data, keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners, get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/majority. Use the promo code majority at checkout. The only way to get 20% off, go to joindeleteme.com/majority. Enter the code majority at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/majority. Code is majority. We'll, of course, put that in the YouTube and podcast descriptions. Also, a couple years back, noticed I was thinning a little bit on top. A couple years before that, Nutrafol had asked to sponsor the show. We didn't have anybody who was interested at the time. And I decided I wanted to try it after a couple of years. And I've been using it now for a couple of years, and it's been incredibly effective. If you're dealing with any type of hair issues like thinning or shedding, but feel stuck on what to try, I get it. There's a ton of products out there. And for me, I didn't want to take drugs. That's why I gave Nutrafol a try. It is not just hype. It is physician formulated, clinically tested, and even recommended by dermatologists. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand. It's trusted by over 1.5 million people. And you can feel great about what you're putting into your body since Nutrafol hair growth supplements are backed by peer-reviewed studies and NSF content certified. It's the gold standard in third-party certification for supplements. And the thing with Nutrafol is they don't just rely on studies about the ingredients. Nutrafol clinically tests their final formulations to make sure the efficacy using a variety of hair measurement tools like hair counts, pull tests to assess growth, quality, shedding, and texture. Adding Nutrafol into your daily routine is simple. You can see thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. And for a limited time, Nutrafol offering you $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com. Enter the promo code TMR10. It's all one, no spaces. TMR, the number 10. Find out why Nutrafol is the best-selling hair growth supplement brand at Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code TMR10. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code TMR10. And lastly, today's episode sponsored by Blue Land. Blue Land is fantastic. I think I am now almost totally Blue Landed out. I'm looking over there because we use the Blue Land hand soap. It comes in tablets. You can use hand soap. We have, I have all the cleaning products at my house, bathroom, window, and the everything cleaner are Blue Land. They come in 3 different color-coded plastic bottles, but they are reuse bottles. I have no more single-use plastic. I use this for my cleaning products. You drop a tablet in. Tablets cost like $2.50. Very reasonable, and they're excellent at cleaning. I have the same thing for my dishwasher. I use the tablets, not the ones covered in plastic, because that plastic goes somewhere, either into the ocean or into our bodies. Same thing for my laundry. Tablets. All of this stuff works great, and the refills are really inexpensive. And I no longer am dealing with A, microplastics, B, the big jugs of laundry detergent or dishwashing liquid that I got to lug home from the supermarket and then take up half of my apartment space and then have to take it to the recycling. This is all, it is so much simpler. It's so much easier. It saves so much space, so much cleaner in many respects. Blue Land was named an EPA Safer Choice Partner of the Year. Like I say, cleaning sprays, toilet bowl. Oh, yeah, I got these toilet bowl bombs. Blue Land's formulas are 100% microplastic free. They're made with certified clean ingredients free from chlorine, bleach, and harsh chemicals. So you can use around your cats, your kids, your puppies. It's great stuff. And it really does clean. I mean, absolutely no drop off on any of the cleanings. Right now, Blue Land has a special offer for our listeners. You get 15% off your first order by going to blueland.com/majority. You don't want to miss this. Blueland.com/majority for 15% off. That's blueland.com/majority, 15% off. Check it out. Do yourself a favor. Get a bunch of stuff with that 15% off up front. All right, quick break. When we come back, Greg Mitchell, journalist, author, writer, director of his most recent, The Atomic Bowl, Football at Ground Zero, and Nuclear Peril Today. We are back. Sam Seder, Majority Report. Emma Vigeland off today. It is a pleasure to welcome back to the program Greg Mitchell, journalist, author, writer, director of multiple documentaries, and his most recent, The Atomic Bowl, Football at Ground Zero, and Nuclear Peril today. Greg, welcome back to the program.
Oh, thank you. Always happy to be here.
Today is the 80th anniversary of Hiroshima.
Right.
And we're 3 days off from the 80th anniversary of the bomb being dropped on Nagasaki. Characterize for us how, the thing that you focus on, seems to me, in terms of with a decent sense of your body of work, at least in the context of the atom bombs, is both to reveal what's been covered up and the idea that it was covered up at the time, and that history was revised almost contemporaneous to the dropping of the bomb. You start with a football game. This is nuts. I had no idea about this, but a football game that was played at Ground Zero. Walk us through that football game and why you started there.
Okay. Well, again, the bomb was dropped on August 9th, 1945. The U.S. occupation of Japan began about 6 weeks later. Tens of thousands of troops then went into Hiroshima and Nagasaki and began this occupation, which very few people really know much about. Much of the focus is on the European occupation, not much know about Japan, and certainly even fewer know about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the huge number of people in there. So, and of course, so the first part of the film talks about the soldiers arriving and the problems they faced, radiation they were still exposed to. They weren't warned very much. It was not monitored very well. And there are all sorts of conflicts with the Japanese and attempts at friendship and so on and so forth. And then in December 1945, a military commander had the idea of having a football game in Japan with an all-star military teams. And for some reason, he decided to have it in Nagasaki, of all places. And they even cleared a field in front of a middle school where 175 students and teachers had been killed by the bomb. This is like 4 months later. So it was a true killing field, you might say. And so they scheduled this game, and it was got quite a bit of publicity at the time. It featured a Heisman Award winner, Angelo Bertelli, a quarterback from Notre Dame, and one of the top pro running backs, Bill Osmanski of the Chicago Bears. So it got a lot of press attention at the time. I go into this is the first real exploration of this game. I've got the first photos and firsthand accounts and so forth. So none of this has really come out before, or very, very, very little. And it got a lot of publicity for a couple days in the U.S. press. It was dubbed the Atomic Bowl. This was back in the days when all the bowl games were played on New Year's Day. That was what you did on New Year's Day. So this was played on New Year's Day, 1946, and it got a lot of early publicity. And then for some reason, it got sort of lost to history. The media never printed any photos. They never returned. Nagasaki itself has gotten very little coverage over the years, but this game kind of disappeared. The players never talked about it with their children. I talked to several of the children of the players, and it really kind of disappeared into history. So, we can speculate on exactly why that was, whether they ultimately the Americans felt shame or not. It wasn't that important in the scheme of things how we were viewed after the use of these two atomic bombs. And, that kind of, if you want to say, backlash set in later.
Was the impetus to, and we should say they had to play two-hand touch because of both shards of glass on the field, but also there was a sense of there could be, because of maybe the radiation fallout, and was the game itself a way to sort of say was there rumors, or the U.S. government had a sense of what the implications of this radiation was. Not as widely known outside of that. Was this a sort of a way? Was this, like, I guess, like analogous to I don't know, Barack Obama going and drinking Flint drinking water and saying, like, I mean, was it one of those type of things?
Well, it's interesting. It wasn't covered that way, but it's certainly the image. I'm sure many people at the time, when they first read about it, some would have said, "Oh, cool," and some of them would have said, "Really, they can play football there?" But the fact is that soldiers have been stationed there and going in and out of Ground Zero and clearing the rubble and drinking the water, as many said. And already by January 1st, there were many who were complaining of health effects. We talk about it a bit in the film. That they were suffering from teeth falling out and all sorts of skin issues and hair falling out and things like that. And then, of course, when they came back to the States, these reports continued, and ultimately there were reports of leukemia and cancer and so on and so forth. So the government denied it for many decades. They then started offering some compensation many years later, 50 years later. So you can't. It's not like you can, like with most things with radiation, you can't say X caused Y, but certainly the symbolism of playing a game right at where you had just wiped out 75,000 people, I guess the message could be different for different people. But it's certainly when people hear about it today, they're horrified. And just to mention another kind of incident that kind of goes with it in a way, it was about 3 months after the atomic bowl. And I write about this in my book and in the film. The military sponsored a Miss Atomic Bomb.
That was my next question, because that's
beauty pageant in Nagasaki. I mean, Japanese women, and they had Miss Atomic Bomb beauty pageant in Nagasaki. So, there certainly doesn't sound like there was a sense of we should really turn the page, quietly go about our business here.
But it does feel like, I mean, that Miss Atomic Bomb sounds to me like trying to, make the bomb feel like a friendly thing on some level.
We would call that normalizing or sane washing. You might watch this film and say, this is a great example of sane watching, as we would call it today. That happened. And of course, the occupation went on for a few more years, and then the U.S. left, and this whole incident got lost to history. And I think we could do 4 more shows just talking about Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And with Nagasaki, I've always written more about than a lot of people, because it's always been the forgotten bomb. And there are so many lessons and warnings from Nagasaki that aren't, even beyond Hiroshima. So I was happy to be able to do a film focusing mainly on Nagasaki, which, to this date is still the little explored and little talked about.
Well, what I did not know until your film, and we should say also there is a companion book as well, that Truman didn't even know that this was going to happen.
Yeah.
How was that?
Knew. Okay, go on.
Well, how does that happen?
Well, it was, I like to call I hate to call, I'm not sure which, the Nagasaki bombing, the assembly line, or the first automated atomic attack, because he did give an order weeks earlier to use the bombs as they're ready. Okay, so you had this momentous Hiroshima blast. They'd worked for weeks on it, and now how it would be announced. They would also be announcing the fact that the Manhattan Project, the invention. There was a lot to unpacked 80 years ago today, as we're speaking. And Nagasaki was like an after. It was like, 3 days later, thanks to General Leslie Groves, who pushed, it was a super hawk, you might say, on this, head of the Manhattan Project. Thanks to him promoting, they really pushed that second bomb forward. And, Nagasaki wasn't even the primary target, but that's a whole nother story, I guess. But So Nagasaki gets bombed, and Truman, who's coming back from Potsdam on a ship, is surprised to learn of this. Yes, he knew we might have other bombs to drop, or it might happen, but he hadn't given a specific order. In fact, Groves bragged that he didn't need Truman's okay in this. So there's evidence that Truman was surprised, and that in whatever case, the next day he ordered that explicit order, no more bombs would be dropped. We had one more ready, and could have been others soon. But he explicitly, and he even referred to, he didn't want to see more kids killed, as he put it. Of course, maybe 100,000 kids had already been killed in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but he didn't want any more kids killed. So Nagasaki is, in some ways, it's always, I don't want to say, left a bad taste with many members of the media and historians who have embraced the Hiroshima bombing. There's always been this kind of, Nagasaki, it kind of sounds like a war crime, maybe. And so let's ignore it. But there have been others like Marty Sherwin and Kurt Vonnegut, of course, called Nagasaki, next to human slavery, the worst crime of last 300 years. And others said similar things. So, and that kind of plays into the film and this the bomb, the football game, because there was a sense of Nagasaki it's a third rail, it's a raw nerve, it's kind of nasty. So I think it's worth exploring that, and then bringing it to the present day. What are the lessons, or what's happened since then?
Walk us through some of those lessons relative to Hiroshima. We should also say one other thing I found fascinating was the orders were that if you did not have clear vision of the target, you don't drop the bomb. They did not have clear vision of the target. They dropped the bomb not where they had anticipated it or were planning to, and I think it was maybe to a mile to the off of target.
Nagasaki, yeah.
And which ultimately may have actually inadvertently saved lives.
Right.
But walk us through what are the distinct lessons of Nagasaki as opposed to Hiroshima?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I mean, I'll just talk about distinctions of Nagasaki. One was that, unlike Hiroshima, it did not have a major military base, and there were less than 500 military personnel were killed, and the rest were all civilians. So you get a little bit of that. I mean, the fact is, we could, if Hiroshima showed that we could, in a way, consider civilians, collateral damage or acceptable loss of life, Nagasaki really made that kind of a horror story. And we see the lesson today with all the.
And we should say Nagasaki, I mean, up to, I don't know, 70, 80,000 people. I don't know if we can know exactly, but I mean, certainly no less than 50,000 people died.
Yeah, probably more than that, but that's a low end, but that's fine. But I mean, so you have that. Of course, we see this in Gaza today. There are people who compare images of Gaza from the air with what Nagasaki looked like. It's really not that far off, not as limited. You don't have fallout today, radiation, things like that. But so I mean, that's one thing. You mentioned this, the bombing of Nagasaki and the cloud cover, and they went on. Nagasaki was not the primary target. It was almost like a drone attack of today's modern drone attack. It's like General Groves sent this plane off with the payload, and it got to Kokura, and then decided, well, that's too much cloud cover. So this plane, or like almost drone, flew on to Nagasaki. It also was covered by clouds, and they thought they might have found a small gap. So they dropped the bomb no matter what. They were going to drop the bomb or ditch it in the ocean. So they dropped the bomb. Again, something a drone might do. And as you said, it landed over a mile off target. And then the plane barely made it back to the base because of a broken fuel pump. And again, it's sort of like the crew was expendable. And the ship was the B-29 was expendable. So again, sort of like a drone today. It also has, in a way, has elements of AI. Where AI is making decisions to go ahead with this bombing run at the earliest possible time. And so instead of Groves making a decision, it could have been an AI decision. It's going to go ahead, and this is how it's going to be carried out. It's going to be carried out no matter what. And of course, we see this warnings today about AI in our nuclear systems. So that's just a couple. There are more, even more. But the Nagasaki bombing is, it's
You're breaking up,
and it does have these lessons, and of course, some people feel it was justified. Okay.
Has
I'm still here.
Yeah. Is your sense that there has been any sort of a significant change in the perception of both Nagasaki and Hiroshima, or specifically one or the other, over the past, I don't know, several decades? I mean, I know you've been writing about this topic for years in different ways. And really,
Sure.
I mean, I think to the extent that there have been people's minds changed, I would imagine that you're one of major reasons, at least out there, in terms of who are pursuing the reinterpretation of this stuff. But is it your sense that there's people reflecting on this differently?
Well, actually, it's a very timely question, because just last week I was writing about a new Pew survey. Of course, Pew is a very well-respected pollster, and they did their first poll in a long time on this very question. And so you'll be interested in the results. Traditionally, Gallup and others who've done polls have found about maybe 53% support the bombing of Hiroshima, and maybe 41 opposed it, and the rest don't know enough to say anything. This Pew survey found kind of a dramatic change. So roughly, I don't have the number, but it was roughly 35% supporting the bombing, 30% opposing, and 30% who didn't have an opinion. Of course, reflects the maybe lack of knowledge that a lot of people have now today. But it was the closest we've ever seen to an even split, and then a lot of other people, let's say, persuadable. And the other interesting thing is that the first time I've ever seen they did a gender and age breakdown, and there's a tremendous gender gap with women who opposed the bombing, and a tremendous age gap with younger people opposing it. So it's quite dramatic, maybe a turning of the tide on this. And so we'll see. But I do think that the Hiroshima narrative is changing a bit. I will add, though, that this poll, I've never seen any poll, did not specifically ask about Nagasaki. They didn't say, what do you think about the Hiroshima bombing? And what do you think about? Now, you would have had a lot more people who would have said, I don't have an opinion on the Nagasaki, because I don't know hardly anything about it. But nevertheless, I've never seen it broken down with the two separate bombings.
Greg Mitchell, the movie is The Atomic Bowl, Football at Ground Zero, and Nuclear Peril Today. And of course, there is also a book. We will link to both. Folks can watch the film right now on PBS's site. Is that the case?
Right. It's airing on PBS stations, but on different nights and different places. So I can't really give like Ken Burns might be able to give you a date, but it's pbs.org. It's streaming. Any PBS app you have on your TV or on your phone, you can find it easily. So it's streaming everywhere, and it's showing on stations around the country, but on different dates.
And we will link to that in the podcast and YouTube description. Greg, thanks for coming on and talking to us about this.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate your interest.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Adam Bonica. He is an associate professor of political science at Stanford. publisher of the On Data and Democracy substack, and he did a deep dive into an enterprise called the Mothership, which has raised millions upon millions upon millions of dollars from presumably Democratic donors, likely online via emails. You've definitely gotten emails from them. And it turns out something like, I can't even say, 2 cents per dollar has ended up to candidates. We'll take a quick break. We'll talk to Adam Bonica right after this. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland is out today. Want to welcome to the program Adam Bonica, Associate Professor of Political Science at Stanford, publisher of On Data and Democracy substack. We'll put a link to that, of course. Adam, am I saying your last name right?
Bonica.
Bonica. Okay. I always have to ask because 90% of the time I am not saying it right. Anybody's last name. This story, I mean, it's not so much, well, walk us through it. What is Mothership? Let's start with that.
Okay, so Mothership is a Democratic fundraising consulting firm. It is a outgrowth of the DCCC, so the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. So it's one of the big national party committees that focuses on fundraising to help Democrats win elections and congressional seats. Mothership.
We should say Mothership is a firm. It's an outgrowth in the sense that that people who used to work for the DCCC.
Yes, that's what it
essentially privatized, decided they're not going to work for the DCCC anymore. They're going to do what they were doing at the DCCC, but they're just going to do it for themselves.
For profit, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and so they left the DCCC. There were 3 former staffers there, and they founded this firm. And they took the sort of dirtiest tactics that were being used by the party at the time to fundraise, and they just turned up the knob to like 11. And early on, what they did is they started up their own PAC, which was called End Citizens United. Some of you may have encountered it because they spam you all the time. And they started to use that as their first client, and they started to build a business off of this. Fast forward, that was back in 2014 when they founded it, 2015 when End Citizens United came out. And they have been sort of in the shadows of Democratic fundraising for quite some time now. And over time, they have sort of built this network of PACs that have been using these tactics, the spam tactics, to fundraise a lot of money. And most of it has either been spent on fundraising expenses or been funneled back to this Mothership strategies as a firm.
So it's almost like, I'm trying to make an analogy that people would understand, but it would be, I start my podcast and then I also start an advertising business, and I pay myself the advertising. I pay the advertising business 35% of what podcast does. And then also I have a temp agency that sends out producers, and I pay the temp agency to send me producers. So I'm basically I'm dealing with myself. I've opened up all these different satellite shops around me that ultimately pay me in, like, I have 6 different revenue streams. So this is out there. We should also say, I think like End Citizens United right now, I read somewhere that they actually were like sending out an email with a poll talking about corruption, which I thought was rather poetic. So this Mothership these guys come from the thing, and I remember that era of DCCC emailing. There was a lot of concern by activists and people sort of like in the fundraising world that this whole strategy of sending emails saying like, we're gonna lose. We're and every 15 minutes
we're doomed.
Yes. There's a term for it that you use in your piece, like churn and burn, essentially.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So churn and burn.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Tell us the different philosophies that you could have theoretically for fundraising before we get to the sort of really the most grotesque part about Mothership.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I should state up front that in terms of the fundraising strategies, the reason I started looking into all this is because this approach to fundraising, where you're essentially being deceptive, predatory, and trying to find marks who will donate to you, is just hugely detrimental to the party's reputation. And so one of the strategies that has really taken hold among a lot of these sort of powerful fundraisers is this churn and burn strategy, where you just say whatever you need to say. You make up stuff. You try to confuse people to like click on your links. You say that there's an $800 match. These are all lies, right? These are very deceptive tactics. So that churn and burn is basically do anything you can to raise a buck. A better fundraising strategy is one where you inspire donors through having good policies or doing something courageous to donate to further the cause. And I think that's the dichotomy here, where you can think of getting people to donate to you because you're doing good things and you're inspiring them. That's the model that should be forefront. The model right now of this churn and burn is just, it is doing so much damage to trust between the party and donors, and trust between and the brand of the party.
Now, is the party, and I want to make sure that we distinguish here between the party in terms of like and Mothership. With that said, and then we could talk about though the problematic sort of, they would call it synergy or that exists there. But like, it seems that the churn and burn is not as intense as it was at other periods, and that some politicians choose to use it and some don't, based on that. I mean, but if you're Mothership, you don't pass policies, right? Like you're not people. The deceit is a lot of times where it's like Zohran Mamdani is one, and help support Zohran's policies by donating here, and it's really just like anybody could say that about anything, right? Like they could say, America's, the Zohran thing is a perfect example. They've probably done that, I would say. And that's the deception, right? Like the idea that somehow this money is going to go somehow support Zohran. And in fact, it's not. Mm-hmm. But it's not even going to support anybody. That's really sort of the most scandalous thing. I mean, like, we can have debates, it seems to me, about what's an effective email strategy, and are there moments where we desperately need money to get people on the ground game, and so yes, we're going to sacrifice best long-term email practices over the next 3 months and do it. But that's sort of debatable, arguable, I guess, but the rest of it is just astonishing. Walk us through how you found out where the money was going.
Yeah, so I started out with the debate that you were just talking about. Like, I just thought it was not a good strategy. And so I looked into, okay, so who is sending me all these texts? Right, like I literally just received one right before I got on about Texas redistricting that has nothing to do with it. And so I was getting these spam texts. So it's like, well, there's an identifiable set of PACs that are sending it. And so I went and just started looking at those PACs. So I spend a lot of time in campaign finance data. It's sort of the area of my research. And so I started pulling on this thread of, okay, all these spam PACs, where are they, like, who are they paying? What are the firms that are central to this operation? And they all led back to this one operation, Mothership Strategies. And it was not a difficult thing to find. And so I've included like all the data online. You can just sort of look it up yourself on the FEC website. It's just a very clear pattern of, you just look up these PACs. If someone spams you, look up the PAC on the FEC and see who they're paying money to. They happen to be this sort of nexus of PACs where they're doing transfers between each other. And so, for instance, Progressive Turnout Project is one of the main ones, where a lot of the other PACs, like Stop Republicans, will send money to Progressive Turnout Project. And then Progressive Turnout is sort of like a shell game where they'll raise a bunch of money, transfer it over to another PAC, and so it's harder to track. But it doesn't take that much work to just look at these patterns of transfers and these patterns of spending, and you can sort of track how much money is going back to Mothership, and it's most of it.
Okay, so who started these PACs? Like I was not terribly savvy to how a PAC can be a scam in and of itself. Like, years ago, I knew a guy who, I was sympathetic to. He was setting up a PAC to help unions, and so I did a little something to help promote it. I may have interviewed him. I can't remember exactly, but it wasn't until later where I'm like, wait a second. He's not taking any money from the PAC, but the PAC was covering all his expenses to go and give talks to unions who would pay him money. And the whole thing was like just a way to get other people to cover part of his essentially business thing. And I became very skeptical of PACs. There are some obviously that are good and are genuinely and they're transparent. But who owns these different PACs? Like, who started them?
So often that information is only partially transparent. What you can see is that there's about 4 or 5 of the main PACs that have been feeding Mothership are run by the same treasurer. So you can identify who the person who's sort of running the operations of the PAC is. I believe his name is Harry Pascal. And there's like networks of these that sort of exist. And that's part of the issue. Like, so if you set up like multiple PACs and you're transferring money between them, and then all this money is being funneled up to one strategy firm, that raises a bunch of questions about what you're exactly doing with that money. And so, for instance, I mentioned Progressive Turnout Project. They're a PAC that they claim to focus on turnout efforts, and yet they've raised about $10.8 million so far this election cycle, and so far they've already spent 9.2, and there hasn't been an election. So it's hard to really make sense of if that's going towards turnout efforts.
And so if I follow, what happens is Progressive Turnout Project will raise $10 million, let's just say, or let's just call it Progressive Project, just for the sake of and they raise $10 million, and they send $5 million to Progressive Wind Project, and they send $3 million to Progressive Wind Project. And now it looks like, okay, they're sending money out to other operations. But all 3 of these operations are funneling 80% of that money to Mothership for services rendered, essentially. And so each one looks like they're distributing to other places. They're not spending the money. We're just helping other entities that are doing good stuff. And they all just happen to use Mothership as okay. And so, and this is legal, we should say.
Yeah, this is, as far as I can tell, all of this is legal. I have not uncovered any illegal activity as far as I know.
It's amazing. I mean, these are would they refer to themselves as political or social entrepreneurs, I guess. And so, and what does then the mothership do? I mean, aside from obviously pay their people, but I mean, there's costs associated with sending out a bunch of emails and text and this and that. But it's all just sort of business costs. How much money ends up going to clients? Like the number that you found since 2018, Mothership linked PACs raised approximately $678 million. This number excludes money raised by the firm's other clients, like candidate campaigns. So they have some candidates. I mean, I went to the Mothership website. It's sort of fascinating. But specifically on this sort of like network, almost like this beltway of PACs. Of that total fundraising haul, $159 million was paid directly to Mothership Strategies for consulting fees. That's not the expenses associated with sending out stuff. That's just like, how do we do this? And that's the vast majority of, well, not the vast, but more than half of what Mothership has been paid by all of its clients. So what appears to be 60% of its business is just raising money really for themselves. And then they're surrounded, then they sort of like put, you know, some, I wouldn't call it window dressing, but it's sort of like, it's almost like if, I'm not suggesting any criminal activity here, I'm just coming up with an analogy. I'm, you know, and I'm not saying that Mothership is money laundering at all, but like if I had a sporting goods store and was getting money funneled in there, but I'd still really try and sell sporting goods. And so I'd have two revenue streams, the sporting goods store and then this sort of like other one that is sort of a little bit more dubious. What is the so they're building relationships. I just want to make like understand like why they have been able. I mean, surely people have been aware of this, and you and I don't know. I don't know if you know, and it would be good if there was reporting. But it seems hard to imagine that a professional in this industry wouldn't be aware of this. Yet, Mothership has had pre-existing relationships with the Democratic Party. They're doing fundraising for other people. Like, you know, I went to their website. It's also fascinating. There is no about us on the website. Like, you can't tell who this is. They just sort of forefront their clients, and they mix in their clients. It's interesting because they do, you can go to their website and almost it sort of expresses that dynamic. Like it shows like all the different people here, you know, bold Democrats, End Citizens United, Equality PAC, and then there's John Ossoff and Jamie Harrison and Demand Justice. I mean, like, you know, Demand Justice is a very, I think, legitimate organization, and actually, like, very clearly has an agenda, but it's sitting next to, you know, Defend the Vote, and I don't know, you know, like PACs that are a little bit dubious. Does that seem to be like what's going on there?
Yeah, there are a network of PACs that basically just exists to be in this Mothership infrastructure, but then there are a bunch of PACs that are genuinely legitimate and have just decided that these tactics, which are extremely underhanded and predatory, are acceptable ways to proceed. And I think that's sort of how you think about it. It's not, this is condoned by many aspects of the Democratic establishment, is one way to think about it. But there's a lot of people in that arena who really dislike what this is, and have been pushing back. And so I think one of the big questions is, what does sort of the Democratic establishment do now? Do they try to snuff this out, or do they allow it to proceed as it's been? It's technically profitable, but it's not actually producing significant resources in the way that you would want to win elections.
It's just sort of like it's these guys just saying like, well, we need a subsidy to do this, when in fact you really don't. I mean, that's a pretty juicy subsidy. I imagine you've gotten a lot of emails over the past, you published this, I think, only a day or two ago. And I imagine you've heard from a ton of people, both reporters and Democratic operatives who are coming and going like, I've noticed this. Is there anything, like in a vague sense, can you tell us like what you've maybe seen from Democrats, both like sort of like like DNC people and...
Yeah, so there are a lot of people who like work in Democratic politics who have been like, someone's found Mothership, like they've known about this and they're like, they dislike it, they really hate the tactics. And so there's that element of it. There's another element of people who are like, and this is sort of really sad, that people like, I've been giving to these PACs and I had no idea, and I've been struggling to, like work it into my budget. And this is where sort of like the predatory tactics come in. So I've heard a lot from a lot of those people, and that sort of breaks my heart that they've been taken for a ride. The one group I have not heard from is the DCCC or the DSCC or the DNC. I've not heard anything from them, and I am unsure how they're going to respond to this all.
Is there anybody out there that you're aware of that has just like a clearinghouse of like, you see things like charity navigators? Is there a center to the left, PAC navigator?
So a lot of people have pointed to Charles Gaba's website. I don't have the exact website. Generally speaking, if you're giving directly on Act Blue to candidates, that's going to be legit. For the most part, I wouldn't worry about that. And
that's why, incidentally, the Trump regime is coming after Act Blue. That's because that is the most efficient way, both in multiple ways, most efficient way to support Democratic candidates.
Yes, yeah, is Act Blue in terms of like candidates fundraising on the site, that's not implicated at all in this. I would hope that Act Blue, and they are working to sort of clear out these types of less legitimate PACs. And so I know that they have efforts internally where they're trying to make sure that there's less of this on the platform and more of the legitimate fundraising.
How does these PACs get their email or phone number lists?
I would love to know the answer to that. My assumption is that they purchase them somehow, but that's not transparent at all in the FEC data.
Interesting. And you were saying that GABA's site has at least some type of clearinghouse of a ranking of these things?
Yeah, so when I went to a site, he sort of lists out all the different races and candidates that you could be giving to. It's just sort of a nice way to just break everything down to see like who's running in your district, who might be running in your state, who might be running in competitive districts. And it just links to the Act Blue pages. And again, so it's just sort of an easier way to make sure that you can navigate this whole fundraising mess where you don't have to worry so much about being caught up with any PACs that may not have the candidate's interests at front and center.
And does anybody know how to get off these lists? I mean, I have always had multiple email addresses that I use as like not burner accounts, but like spam accounts. I was very fortunate like 15 years ago to have some tech guys say like, oh, I've got a spam email. And I'm like, oh, I'll do that. Is there any way once you're on, because it just seems like they just sell it around and around?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that people have been commenting on. They say, like, I say stop to quit, like it says, and then they just send it from like another one of these groups, right? So there's not, to my knowledge, an easy way to get off the list. The answer to this is hopefully having someone, with authority at the party level decide that they should not be part of the fundraising ecosystem and get ourselves off, like get everyone off the list.
How would that happen? I mean, I know this isn't necessarily your part of your portfolio, but I mean, would the chair of the Democratic Party say, anybody who works until I am convinced that Mothership is in compliance with these ethical guidelines, anybody who works with them, we're cutting off? Is that basically it?
Yeah, you just put them on a list and say anyone who work that firm and anyone who is a vendor for that firm is on a list of vendors and consultants that are not going to get paid by the party, and the party is going to say that the candidate shouldn't pay them either. If you have they tried to do, like, there was an attempt to do that with consultants who had worked for primary challengers. They have the ability to do it. And that's not something outside of their purview. They should be policing the space. They have a responsibility to do that.
Again, this might be a little bit outside your portfolio, but it seems to me that this is not on its face part of an interesting ideological battle, but one step forward or back, downstream or upstream from it, it feels like it seems to me that that there is a consultant class within the Democratic Party that, we have this problem with Harris's campaign. Like, that was a lot of money. And we know that media buys enriches consultants much more than, let's say, canvassing does. There is just a sort of corporate mentality about, like, I'm here. The days of the company man, that was a quaint notion in the 50s. It's really like, I'm here, I'm in a corporate structure. How do I enrich myself as much as possible within this sort of like consultant world? And that to me has some ideological basis, it feels like.
Yeah, I think the framework I tend to think about it in is sort of like a more traditional establishment versus anti-establishment framework within the party. For instance, there are a lot of candidates, a lot of members of the Democratic Party who really dislike the consulting class as it exists. And that's one of the dividing lines within the party. And I think it breaks along the sort of traditional establishment versus more anti-establishment element to the party. And that can break across ideological, sort of like progressive versus more centrist framework. You can be anti-establishment anywhere along that framework. And I think that's a really important divide within the party right now, and one that's playing out. That I think that this is the election cycle where the party decides whether it's going to move forward with this traditional consulting class or whether it's going to try to do something different.
I guess, and one thing to watch out in the event that happens, there's one thing to shatter the old boy network, for lack of a better term, which undoubtedly involves people of all genders and ages. But the old boy network, you don't want it to be replaced by just a new boy network, as much as you want one to be replaced by a competent network. And that's always a danger. Well, I hope that there are a half a dozen reporters who have contacted you and for the stories that they're going to write on this, because this feels like something where the more exposure it gets, and frankly, the more blame the Democratic Party apparatus gets, whether they're directly responsible for this or not, the more pressure on them, because they are the ones who are most the best position to shut this down. Are there other entities aside from Mothership that you've come across? Are you is this become a little bit of a project where you're starting to look at other constellations of these super PACs, or is the mothership of this?
I haven't, but there is good research in political science that uses machine learning methods to identify scam PACs. And so I just wrote this a few days ago, as you noticed, but I am looking into whether I can make a broader research agenda out of looking for how to identify these types of groups, building off of existing research. And so it's a known problem, and I'm only adding a little bit to the broader perspective, but I think this is a really important spoke and hub of this type of bad actor in the space. And so I do hope that there is a response.
Well, we're going to link back to your Substack, to this specific piece and the Substack more broadly, so that we can follow up on the work you're doing. Really appreciate it. It is, I feel like, something that there was people maybe had a vague awareness that there was something wrong here. And I think this is clearly it, and maybe more. But really appreciate the work and your coming on to talk about it.
Well, thanks for having me on. This was great.
All right, folks. We're going to, we again will link to Adam Bonica's piece in his Substack on data and democracy. Somebody making fun of my...
just announced the launching of Matt Pack is...
Oh! Congratulations. That's great. That's great. It honestly is as easy as that. I mean, you need to file. You need to file, but I mean, the thing is, so much of this happens on the right. So much of it happens on the right. And the real problem, well, aside from it being predatory, Trump does this on a daily basis. I mean, someone put us on the, we sign up for Republican mailers, and our email inbox has emails from Trump 3 times a day. They're coming for me, and it's
get your wallet out,
and it's here's a coin to buy or whatever it is. A bigger problem is that there's just not as much resources, broadly speaking, that are floated around. I mean, I know it looks like it, but there's just simply not as much resources. The center left, and certainly not as much resources. If grandma's giving money, or you're giving money, or your kid's giving money, you want that to go to candidates and ideas that you really legitimately support. Just because the name progressive is in there, or equality, or End Citizens United, Let America Vote, Progressive Caucus. These, elect women.
The whole churn and burn conversation is fascinating because, I think a lot of the unpopularity is because of, the support for a genocide and that sort of thing. But how much of it is because they've been doing this thing? And you search churn and burn sales technique, strategy where companies focus on aggressively acquiring new customers while neglecting customer retention, leading to high customer turnover, aka something you can only do for so long.
Yeah.
And so we decided to do it for the past 5-10 years, maybe.
Well, I mean, if you're getting paid $70 million a year, how many years do you need to work for?
Who cares if everyone hates the party in 5 years?
No, well, that's the thing, is that, this is not, I think it's important to distinguish, at least on some level, my candidate is going to lose unless we have the money to put out, paid support staff for volunteers. And so I'm going to use tactics that are short-term tactics versus I'm going to make $70 million if I do this year. And if I can do it for 2 or 3 years, I am by myself Epstein's Island.
The fools, if we say fascism is coming, they click at a 3% higher rate.
The only thing I would argue about that statement is that it's probably at a higher rate.
Right.
But those words undoubtedly, wherever, because I'm on the Mothership website, and the only thing is careers or contact us. Like, there's no, like, who are we? Come work with us. It is fully remote. God knows what you're doing. Okay, today's assignment. Wow.
Means I can work from the Isle of Man.
Actually, listen, they get healthcare, generous time off, 401k, profit sharing, student loan assistance. Are they really? Food and snacks. They send you food. What the?
Free Uber Eats.
This is nuts. I mean, I may apply.
I was going to say 2 weeks notice incoming. I'm actually getting really freaked out about this fascism now.
All right. Well, we're going to take a break and head into the fun half. We're going to start off with some disturbing ice footage that we've got our hands on. This footage is from, well, actually, let's play it now. This footage is from June 30th. And out in LA, there was a protest going on around Sepulveda and trying to stop ICE raids that were happening July 30th out in LA. So about a week ago. And this footage is particularly disturbing because, and you're going to have to look behind these ICE guys who are trying to block the camera person, because behind them, you can see that they have restrained a guy who is presumably, it's their target. I don't know anything about him. But there's a guy with a 35 millimeter camera who is shooting pictures of the subject. And the ICE guys, they have him constrained or restrained. Then it appears like the photographer says, "Give me that again." And they drop the guy to the ground and struggle with him more as the guy is taking pictures. So we got to go through this video somewhat slowly. This is really disturbing stuff. Now, I know that the ACLU in LA has filed suits against ICE, and I think around, at least involving events on this day. Okay, watch this. And
I'm going to be right here, my friends.
Okay, stop it right there. You see the guy in the back in the darker suit. You can just, right there where he's got a 35 millimeter camera. And, often you'll see these ICE guys with videos that they're shooting the protesters. This is basically publicity stills. We don't know what they're using it for, but go ahead.
I cannot see you from your airplane,
there. So the guy is standing, right? They've got the guy constrained. They've got two guys on him. The guy in the white shirt behind there, he comes into frame right there. They've got him. Okay.
They're coming to bomb you.
¿Cuál es? ¿Sabes eso? ¿Cuál es?
Back up.
¿Cuál es su nombre, güey? I'll back up if you give me name and badge right now. Name and badge?
So you can see, and they right behind there, they've already got him. He's cuffed, his hands behind his back, and they're going to take him back down to the ground to take photos.
Name and badge and I'll walk this way. Otherwise,
they just did it. They just dropped him. Okay, now that guy right there with the cap that's facing us is now shooting pictures of him on the ground.
You are going to be federally charged for kidnapping.
Right there, right
You're
there.
the Kafia. Whoa, dude, that's cool. This guy's cool. Oh, this guy's got a fucking kafia.
On the left side. Left side. On the side.
Actually, you do not get it. ¿Cuál es?
Allá está mi troca.
¿Quién? En troca. ¿Sabes dónde está? ¿Sabes dónde está su tele? Aquí. ¿Es suya? No, su teléfono está en...
You got his name and number?
Okay,
it's
little
good
boys.
thing they got 25 military geared up guys.
Are you ready for the court martial? Are you, in particular? You look like you wouldn't do well in prison.
Any badges or faces?
Badge,
No?
please, my friend. Badge number right now.
We're not police.
Yes, you are. You're a federal officer.
Yeah, we don't have badge numbers.
Yes, you do, little boy. CD12, fucking loser.
Don't worry about it.
What? Don't worry about it. Bro, you have a CN grenade. You're such a fucking pussy. Oh my god.
Pause it right there. The guy's literally got some type of like gas canister on his. I mean, this is just absurd. But they're using, they're dropping this guy down to the ground to take like publicity stills or something.
It's like Bukele.
All the local CB, the border patrols, like if you look at the Arizona one, the SoCal one, the El Central one, they're making like influencer videos for their, they're making like fake films about their arrests and everything with like color correction and like dramatic music and everything.
It's exactly what Bukele's doing in El Salvador. These really glossy.
We saw those from CCOT. Yeah.
CCOT promotion videos where you can't actually get lawyers in there, but you can get film crews.
We will, we'll find out what happens next. But that's basically
That's one guy. They got one guy.
They got one guy with those 6 cars. Yeah. And all that gear.
All the face masks.
Insane. All right. Just a reminder, your support is what makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only get the free show free of commercials, but you also get the fun half, and you can IM us. And Scary Mountain Wizard says everyone needs to do what that guy is doing. Just make fun of them to their faces, without a doubt. Make fun, have fun again. You could, Sam, in MacArthur Park, LA, you could see the same cameraman walking around filming. It's also like, I can't imagine there isn't any type of law about like making a publicity video. Although the problem with like immigration, it's a sort of a netherworld of law. And there's no, they've built this system now so that there's really no mechanism for accountability. Also, don't forget justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, hot chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. Matt, Left Reckoning.
Yeah, we had Kylie Chung on last night talking about her new book, Coercion, and why abusers love abortion restrictions. I had no idea. I feel pretty naive that a lot of states won't let you get a divorce, even if your husband's abusive, if you happen to be pregnant, and other sorts of horrible things like the snitch line that Texas tried to set up where you could report women for seeking abortion. So I checked that out last night on Left Reckoning. Subscribe on YouTube. Patreon.com/Left Reckoning if you want to support my PAC.
See you in the fun half.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Unpack.